Hello and welcome to K.O.R.H Hobbies. My name's Gary, and today we're going to be doing a full review and my thoughts video of the Sworkz Zeus. We're going to do this on the MT version I built, as well as the Truggy version that I acquired, I guess you could say. And basically I'm just going to go through what you get with these real quick, my experience with both styles of vehicle, and then basically give you my thoughts at the end, whether I would recommend this kit or not. So let's dive in. Alright, so focusing on the Truggy version first. Basically I got this as a roller. It was previously tested on the RC network. When I got it, it was in pretty much almost brand new shape. It had a couple small scratches on the chassis. Nothing much to write home about. Everything was set up well, and I went through it, made sure it was all good, and basically threw electronics in it and started driving it. So pulling off the shell's held up well. I haven't had too many issues. Just one little crack right here from basically hitting the shock tower, not a big deal. I did reinforce it with Gorilla Tape, so that has probably helped out with the longevity of this thing, and it hasn't taken a whole lot of really bad landings. I wouldn't say I had too many hard crashes with this thing. I did use the BLX 185 system out of your typical 1/8 scale Arma, and this system is excellent. Very, very happy with this system. I use pretty much the stock tires that, you know, this thing is always shown with, that it comes with or whatever. The kit does not come with these tires, by the way, so just FYI, if you get this kit, you do have to purchase tires, steering servo, you know, transmitter, receiver, ESC, and a motor. None of that stuff is included. It is just a raw kit with the body that you have to assemble yourself, and we'll go over that in a little bit. On this side, this is the one that I bought the kit, built it myself and everything, painted the body, all that stuff. I went MT version with this because it is technically classified as an MT. Pretty much the same story on this side. This body has taken slightly more damage. We'll go over why shortly. But I did flex seal this instead of Gorilla Taping, and I do have to say I think Gorilla Tape holds up better. This thing has taken a couple more shots, I would say, but all in all, the body is still pretty good. I mean, these front holes are wallered out a little bit, but other than that, there's no cracks, there's no real breaks in the rest of the body. So the bodies that they do send with these kits do tend to hold up. Now I went, as I said, monster truck version on this style. Basically, the difference being these are basically Truggy tires and these are monster truck tires. So I did choose to go with the Hobbywing Max 8 system and this monster truck version. Basically comparable to this, slightly more expensive, but both of these systems are solid. I'm happy with them. The steering servo I ran in this, I was not so happy with. It is the Turnigy Trackstar Evo T2. It has poor throw. I'll just say that right out of the gate. It doesn't have a very far throw, so it doesn't give you a whole lot of steering, which is, it's weird. It's got good speed. It's got amazing torque. It just has a small amount of throw. It's weird. Other than not being able to turn very sharp, it does hold the tires. It does turn them very easily. But we'll go over all the electronic stuff in a minute. Now, as you can see, these things look pretty different. And that's because I had different problems with both styles, I should say. So let's kind of just talk a little bit about what you get with these. I'll just go over the Truggy because it's nice and open. There's not this stuff in the way to to affect anything, but basically this comes as a kit. You have to build it yourself. It does have a good setup suspension. The shocks and everything are very nice. The fluids they give you to fill the shocks with are perfect. You do have typical H-arms in the rear with adjustable camber links. You do have a track bar as well with a nice, very nice, high quality aluminum shock tower. And the shocks are aluminum bodied and capped, and they are threaded to adjust ride height. Basically, those components of this truck are solid. I mean, the shocks and everything are set up very well. It does have a 3-diff setup, a lot like the MT410. The diff is very far back on the chassis, and you have a tiny, short, little stubby rear drive shaft, and the front drive shaft is pretty long. It is a flat pan chassis. As you can see, it's pretty nicely designed. It is, all the hardware is countersunk. It does have this nice little engraved Sworkz right here. I am running skid plates on this one. This one has bumper skid plates, basically. Other than that, it's pretty much your standard 1/8 scale Truggy or monster truck. You have a pillow ball suspension in the front with adjustable turnbuckles, so camber and toe in and out will be adjustable. And you do have a track bar up front as well. Alrighty, so let's go over my experiences with this now, since I've kind of gone over, you know, the design of this thing. So, my experience with these things, the reason I actually got these, I threw a bid in for this. I wasn't sure if I was going to win it or not. And then I went ahead and I was like, you know what, I'll just buy a kit. And I did. I bought a brand new kit, brand new tires, brand new electronics, and then I wanted to do the whole build on this thing, which I actually did. But meanwhile, I did end up winning this as a roller for a very decent price for a roller compared to what you buy the kit for. So at that point, I was kind of at a crossroads. I wasn't sure if I just wanted to resell this, if I wanted to just build this and sell it and then test this one. And I came to the point where I was like, you know what? I'll just test them both. One is a monster truck and one is a Truggy, and see which version I like better, and which one's, you know, which one tends to be more my style of driving experience and all that stuff. So that's why I did the whole Truggy and monster truck with this thing. So coming to my driving experience with these things. First off, both of these systems, the BLX 185 system, which is basically just a rebranded Hobbywing system, 150 amp ESC in this nice brushless motor, tons of power. Awesome, awesome, amazing power. This Max 8 system is every bit as powerful and as awesome. Hobbywing is definitely a very good go-to company for their electronics. I have had little to no issues with all of the Hobbywing stuff that I have owned over the years. So, driving experience, they are very different. From driving the monster truck to driving the Truggy, they are very, very, very different. And it's basically the monster truck to Truggy differences. This one is, the Truggy version is way more agile, tends to be a little bit quicker, and just all in all kind of a little more of a nutball. That has to do with the agility and everything. It is quite a bit narrower. It doesn't sit as high, but it does seem to be just kind of more of a wild card, you know, when you're driving it around. It does tend to get a little bit crazy when driving the Truggy. It is a fun experience. Now with the monster truck is, I would say every bit as fun as the Truggy version, just in different aspects. You don't have the agility of the Truggy version, but you do have the good power with that system I put in here. With the tires and the added clearance, it does tend to mash a little bit more. You can, you can just kind of go fast over a little bit rougher terrain, and doing backflips and tricks with the monster truck version is much easier. And I do think it tends to jump a little bit better because you have a little more control with the bigger tires. Not to say that the Truggy version doesn't jump well, because it most definitely does. It's just a different experience. It's Truggy to monster truck. People that have owned a lot of both will understand what I mean when it's just kind of different. You have, this one's a little more touchy. You hit the brakes, it'll tend to nose down a little bit harder because the tires are bigger and everything. You do have good clearance, and it's just monster truck to Truggy, the typical stuff. A little less clearance, tires are a little smaller, harder to do backflips, but definitely rips through narrow spaces and stuff like that much easier. This thing more of kind of lumbering beast, powerful wheelies on command and backflips on command. No problem with any one of those things. So both of these are fun to drive in their own ways. I do tend to like tricks and stuff more, but we'll talk about which version I like the most at the end. So moving on from driving experience, handling is much better with the Truggy version. I'll just say that out of the gate. Whether it be the steering servo lacking in this one, the bigger tires, all of that stuff, it's just a monster truck versus Truggy. So this one is a little bit easier to drive, but I would say not quite as fun. It is very fun, but I just tend to lean towards the monster truck version on that aspect. Now let's go over some pros and cons. So pros, these things are pretty fun. I will say that. As far as the setups for like light to maybe medium bashing, I would say they are well set up for that. I'm sure you could take the Truggy out on the track and do well with it in a race if you have it set up to race. For track running and light bashing, I think both of these will do very well. You might have a few issues here and there, but most RCs that you get will have those. As far as build quality, we'll get into that in a second. So pros and cons. Pros, they do have a decent setup. Cons, at the same time, they are not well designed for hard bashing, I will say. We'll kind of go over that and like the durability issues and stuff I had. Pros, they are highly adjustable. From the shocks to the camber, the toe in and out, all of that stuff is highly adjustable. They are a pretty high class Truggy and monster truck with a lot of adjustability. They do have a little bit of racing blood in them. I know Sworkz is a pretty big company overseas. Here in the United States, they're just kind of dipping their feet in the market by releasing this. Another con I will say is that it is pretty difficult to get parts, and if you look up parts for the Sworkz Zeus, you will find nada. You will not find any parts whatsoever. You will be able to find parts for the Sworkz S-35T. That is what I had to look up to get all of the parts I needed for all the parts I broke on these two vehicles. So that in itself, if you're not savvy with knowing that you have to look up parts for the S-35T, you won't be able to find parts. And it is still kind of a gamble for the most part to find parts that are in stock. So part support is definitely a negative on these, I will say, especially if you look for parts for the Sworkz Zeus. It's just, you're not going to find anything. So part support is kind of a negative. Aftermarket support, basically the same thing. There is no aftermarket support if you look for it for the Sworkz Zeus. You have to look under the S35T, and they do have a few select upgrades that you can get. You can get aluminum chassis braces and stuff like that. Once again, if you can find them in stock. Another con is the manual, the owner's manual, the builder's manual. Oh my God. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Sworkz should have addressed that like day one, the first time they got a complaint. If they haven't been bombarded by complaints for that builder's manual, they definitely should. Horrible. Tells you use the wrong hardware, put the wrong parts in the wrong places. A lot of times it doesn't even explain like what's going on. It is just an absolute horrible, horrible builder's manual, and I would highly suggest you get several kits under your belt before you actually try to build these, because it is tough. I was beyond frustrated, I will say. And I got sent the wrong part. I actually had to order a different part. It wasn't even the right part, but it ended up working. And it was for the S35T, because I couldn't find any parts at all for the Sworkz Zeus. So it ended up working in the end, but it was a huge headache. I had to stop my build in the middle of it because of it. So, I mean, along with the builder's manual, just having, you know, poor quality control, it just makes for a nightmare. It is an absolute nightmare to put these things together going off the owner's manual. I highly suggest you do your research, watch several build videos if you can find them on YouTube before you dive in, before you even buy one of these. I would highly, highly recommend you do that. Another con is going to be the design. The design of these is not impressive at all. From the chassis plate is nice, I will say that, but these big flaps on the outside, this like big 1.5 inch wide flap on both sides where you mount your receiver box to and stuff, I mean, they're pretty flimsy. As you can see, I can just move that and just move the whole receiver box, and I'm not even like barely trying to move that. Another thing are these tiny, dinky, fragile little chassis braces. I mean, that is just totally unacceptable. This whole chassis, you can just flex it. The whole thing just flexes in and out. I can touch the motor to the ESC just by pushing in on it. That's why on the monster truck version, where I had a ton of problems with chassis flex, I actually designed this center chassis brace, and one was not enough. I put one brace in here, one of these pieces. It was not enough. The chassis actually flexed enough with that added chassis bracing in there to actually bend one of these. That's why I went dual and made this little thing in the middle, just trying to keep the chassis from folding in on itself. Now pros, I do think they look pretty cool. That is one thing. I do think they look pretty cool. And a pro would be also, if you are looking at light to medium bashing, or maybe just track running or trail running, you know, or just wide open areas, I do think these things are pretty decent at that. Is it worth all the headache and the money you're going to spend to get it to that point? We'll see. Alrighty, so now it's time for my thoughts. I will basically just talk about both of these versions and whether I would recommend either one of them or not. So just coming right out and saying it, anybody as a basher, anybody that compares this to the MT410 from Techno is just absolutely insane. Anybody who compares this to that is just insane. It does not even hold a candle, not even close as a basher. Inferior everything in my opinion. Build quality extremely inferior. Build design, again, extremely inferior. Durability wise, extremely inferior. You know, part support, extremely inferior. Just basically everything you could check on the list of like, you know, this is good, this is bad. The Techno MT410 takes the cake on everything good, while the Sworkz Zeus will check all the bad marks. I am highly disappointed in both versions of this. I had more durability issues with the Truggy version for some reason. I did not assemble this myself. It said it was professionally assembled. RC Network is a good solid channel. He has a huge following, way huger than mine. So as far as I can tell, this thing was put together correctly. I can't see any parts on it that should be swapped for something else that would have came in the kit. Nothing like that. So I don't think it was how it was put together. I just think it's kind of like the design. Maybe I had serious A-arm issues in the rear with this thing. I didn't have as much of the chassis flex issues, but I did have A-arm issues with this thing. I just kept breaking rear A-arms for some reason. The monster truck version, while I never actually broke apart, the chassis flex was so bad that it bent the front center drive shaft, kind of just like horseshoed it. I was able to like bend it back with a hammer. It seems to be high quality material because it was not easy. It still has a little bit of a wobble to it because it's not perfectly straight. I did bend it back. It's not perfectly straight. I do have a brand new drive shaft ready to go in this thing. But the only other issue I had with this thing besides the chassis flex was I did strip out the spur gear on my last 6S run. The spur gears are plastic, so that's kind of expected. You know, even high quality like the Techno MT410, I did end up stripping a spur gear out of that thing on 6S. With the monster truck tires and all the power going through it, like I said, that's kind of to be expected, but I'm just gonna have to give both of these things a fail. Like, thumbs down, 2 thumbs down and 2 thumbs down. I am not impressed with these at all, especially for the price you pay for the kit and everything. It is comparable cost-wise to the MT410, and these things don't hold a candle. Not even close. Not even close. Absolutely inferior. That's the only reason I ended up getting the Sworkz Zeus, is because people were comparing them to the MT410. And I was like, hey, MT410 is my favorite RC ever. I love that thing. I will never, ever get rid of my MT410 ever. Basically, it is still 100% stock. I have bashed and bashed and bashed and bashed the bejesus out of that thing, and I've only ever broken 2 parts on it. So to say that this thing is in even the same realm as that is a complete over-exaggeration of this RC's capabilities. On a track, it will do better. I will say that. On a track, if you're trying to race or just track running or whatever, most likely this setup will do you better. But outside of that, if you step into the bashing world at all, this thing does not hold a candle to the MT410. I do not recommend this RC at all. Not at all. From the build frustrations to the durability issues, to the part support situation, the bad design of the chassis braces and everything, I just have to give these an absolute fail. These, I would have to say that Sworkz Zeus has knocked out the K.O.R.H Psycho as the most disappointing RCs I have tested. Now, to go to which one I like better out of these two horrible machines, I would say the Monster Truck version. I definitely like the Monster Truck version better. As I said, I had less durability issues with the Monster Truck version. It was funner for me to drive because I am not a track driver. I am a basher. And this tends to be the better basher of the two setups, of the Truggy setup and the Monster Truck setup. The Monster Truck is the better version for my style out of these two, but as far as both of them, I wouldn't recommend them. They're too expensive for what you get. Now, as I said, they will make a good to decent light to maybe medium basher, and if you want to take it on the track, I think they will shine. I, however, will not be taking them on the track, so they will not be shining to me. Anyways, that's my full review and thoughts on these. I definitely give these both 2 thumbs down. I do not think they're worth the money. I don't think they're worth the frustrations to build them or the frustrations of trying to find parts to make them decent. So yeah, that's basically where I'm going to leave it. And anybody that compares these to an MT410 is just completely out of their mind. They're not even close. Neither one of these versions. Both of them put together, all the bashing I've done with them doesn't hold a candle to one bash session with the MT410. I will leave it there. Thank you for watching. Please thumb up this video if you liked it and or it was informative. Thumbs down if you didn't like it and you think I'm just out of my mind for thinking these things aren't the awesomest things ever. Go ahead and check out that description if you got time. Thank you for sitting through this. I know it's been a long one, so I won't waste any more of your time. So this is Gary from K.O.R.H Hobbies. Get out there, get an RC, go have some fun, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace!